Hey everyone, this is Scott from Forgot to Grow Up. Welcome to our latest ReWatch Revisit review. Our video series where I rewatch a movie I haven't seen in a while, talk about my thoughts after revisiting it, and then give you guys the audience and critics as well as my review for the movie. So today I'm going to be talking about the Chronicles of Riddick starring Vin Diesel, what I like to think of as his space XXX movie, or his space Fast and the Furious movies. So the Chronicles of Riddick is the sequel to Pitch Black, which again also starred Vin Diesel, but the Chronicles of Riddick is where I was introduced to this, and it follows again Vin Diesel's character of Riddick, who is just a space badass. He's got glowy eyes that let him see in the dark, and he's really good at killing people. That's pretty much his character, except in this movie we do learn a little bit more about how he's from a certain race and how that ends up leading him to be able, spoiler alert, save the universe. And that's pretty much what this whole movie ends up being about, is him kind of being the reluctant hero that he seems to always be, the badass who doesn't, follow the rules, but then occasionally has to save everything. And so this one, the Chronicles of Riddick, follows him having to save a friend and then stop this whole race of necromongers who are taking over the earth, who are like half dead, half alive people, and they're trying to take over the universe, and Riddick is the only one that can stop them, or so it seems. I really enjoyed revisiting this one because I remember really enjoying it when I was younger. It was a really fun kind of, it is a really fun, actually, I should say, sci-fi fantasy, very out there. Not your typical, it's not a straight sci-fi, because it isn't just, based around a certain technology or anything like that, and it does have very fantastical elements in it, particularly with some of the powers that Riddick and other people have, particularly the necromongers in this one, who are, like I said, like half-dead people, things they can kind of shift into ghosty things. It's a whole thing, but so revisiting this was still a fun revisit, but being older now, I can't remember now, how old is this movie? I think it's like 20, this has got to be like 10 years old. It's at least 10 to 15 years old, so revisiting it now that I'm older, having a little bit more of a perspective on it, I could see why the critics didn't love it as much. It is kind of kind of run-of-the-mill action story, but set in space, and it is just a story about Riddick being the reluctant hero or Vin Diesel being the reluctant hero who ends up having to save the whole universe, in this case it is save the whole universe as opposed to the whole planet. I still enjoyed revisiting it, kind of seeing these fun little fantastical elements that I kind of miss, actually. That's the one thing that stuck out to me while rewatching this. I don't miss maybe this movie in particular, but I miss this style, this kind of grandiose, people pretty much trying to make their own version of Star Wars, making their own kind of these big sci-fi fantasy universes. I like them. I love Star Wars, obviously, so I like this Riddick one. Felt like an attempt at that, and just kind of gave me this kind of lust or a desire for more of these style of things, kind of like we do kind of have coming up with like Dune and etc. But that was kind of the biggest thing that stuck out to me rewatching this, was that. Another couple fun things was kind of seeing the different actors who, when I watched this the first time when I was a kid and I was younger, that I didn't connect to, in a sense, meaning I didn't connect who the actor was, or who the actor was who was playing these different characters. And so rewatching it was fun to be like, oh yeah, Kyle Urban's in this, and oh Dan, you knew that? I totally forgot. I didn't even know who you were back then. I didn't know your name when I watched this movie. I don't remember her, obviously I remember her being in it as visually, but I had never made the connection to her name when I was younger, because, well, when you're younger you don't tend to care as much about actors' names and stuff like that. So it is funny revisiting it now that I've, particularly since I just finished rewatching 2 seasons of Westworld and starting the new 3rd season of Westworld, just seeing Thandie Newton pop up in Chronicles of Riddick was just a fun little oh yeah, I forgot. It's been so long, you forget these little things, and that, so that was a fun little thing to rediscover these little bits. Another thing was just seeing younger Vin Diesel. I'm just like, oh, I see now why we all fell in love with you back in the day. Obviously, I still like him. He's a great guy, and all the things he does. But some people aren't as fond of him, but I can see what I mean is I can see where his stardom came from. I can see how he was, almost the, a younger, or almost like the 2000s version of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger was for the 80s and 90s. It was kind of like Vin Diesel was one of the ones fitting into that role. So I could see how we kind of connected to him, why I connected to him when I was younger, particularly that. And my dad made me watch all the Fast and the Furiouses all the time. So this revisit was just really fun for the most part. I don't know if I'll be revisiting it anytime soon. It's nothing special. That's one thing about it. It does kind of, I don't say buy the book, but it is pretty, like, if you write out what the hero's journey is, and then you look at the plot of this movie, it's very, they didn't stray very far with it, and so, which, is a criticism you can make of a lot of hero's journeys, movies based on that follow a hero's journey, but it's when they don't hide it well enough, you know what I mean? When I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, this is the scene where the mentor dies, and it's like, okay, you guys gotta hide it a little. You have to have me more invested in the movie so that I'm not thinking about the fact that, oh yeah, this is the part where Obi-Wan dies. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong movie. This is the part where the old guy dies, and so I just. That's the one kind of criticism I have of it, but otherwise I enjoy it. It's just kind of fun, kind of, like I said, fun kind of not taking itself too serious. Well, no, it took itself very seriously, but if you shouldn't take it too seriously because it's kind of just a fun rewatch. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on the revisit. Now the reviews for this, as I mentioned, critics did not really like it. The Rotten Tomatoes score for this movie is 29%, which I can't argue too much with. I can't argue with the critics on that one too much about, even though I am a little bit more on the audience side, and the audience on Rotten Tomato gave it a 65%, so that's a little bit more where I would rate it around. It's not a 100% movie. It's still fun, but it does have these little issues. Like one of my biggest things, particularly rewatching this, was just seeing how like kind of some of the fighting was a little too. I don't say over the top for me, but it was a little too. You guys really liked using the wires in this one, didn't you? You guys watched a lot of The Matrix before you made this, but didn't decide to hire the guy who made those, because there were just a lot of things where he literally just picks up the guy, straight throws him over his head, and just like it's just a few little things like that that are just, obviously like, okay, you guys could have made a better decision for that. So that's why I don't blame the critics for their score and why it's not definitely 100% for me, but 65, I'm around where the audience falls for this one for sure, because it is just, like I said, it is a fun, kind of over the top sci-fi fantasy movie, and so it's just fun. The one that I think they could have continued this universe. Like, we could have gotten more Riddicks if, again, spoiler alert for this movie, if he didn't end the movie, because this seems like it was probably a Vin Diesel choice, but he ends the movie with him being the boss of the big army that was taking over the galaxy, and it's like, well, you can't really go very far from there. That'd be like if Star Wars ended with Luke taking over the Empire, and it's like, well, actually, no, that'd be kind of interesting. But the way they set up this one, it made it slightly less interesting. So I'm like, I don't care about Riddick ruling the universe. But anyways, that's not really here or there. But that's pretty much all my thoughts on my rewatch revisit review of the Chronicles of Riddick. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought of the Chronicles of Riddick and what your general thoughts on Vin Diesel movies are in general. Are you a big fan of him, or could you take it, or could you live without him? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thanks again for joining me today. Sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and have a good one.